There it is. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Siobhan Sarna. Glad you are here with us at SIBO SOS today. And we will be sending out a replay. And we are also, if you are on, another format of seeing this, do find it also in the Facebook group, SIBO SOS Community. Now, my special guest is indeed Steve Wright. He is one of the leaders in pioneering gut health to the masses, honestly. His work with leaky gut and his honesty out in the world of like, hey, yeah, I used to really suffer and I had people at work saying I had stinky farts. I'm paraphrasing, have really, I think, led the way for so many people to be a little bit more or a lot more comfortable with their gut health, but also hard knowledge about a lot of things associated with gut health. I've learned so much from him. But today we're going to be focusing on a first and final frontier, which is digestive enzymes. I say it's one of the first frontiers because I think it's one of the first things that people could easily look at, and that so often is overlooked. So that's why it's kind of the final frontier. When people get around to the point of like, I've tried everything and I'm still not well, what should I do? They circle back around to the digestive enzymes. What do you think about that, Steve Wright?
Well, I mean, I think it's true. People don't want to hear it until they have gone through that cycle of frustration. But if you look at any other domain, like for instance, sports, the top, even LeBron James, who just won the NBA championship, his fundamentals, his just basics of basketball have to be the best in the world for him to then, be so expressive that he can do all the other cool stuff. And so whether you do tennis or basketball or digestion, you got to do the fundamentals correctly until you can get to the really cool stuff. And so I think I've become aware of this since COVID, that I love miracles. I love miracle pills. I didn't know that I had been doing this since I was a child, but yeah, I have like a shelf full of books, but I have just as many supplements that didn't work. And so I'm always for the newest, the latest, the greatest, only to always come back to like, right, if you can't do the basics, all the other cool stuff, it always just, at least for me, it leaves me frustrated. Like, that didn't live up to the hype that I bought it from.
Right. It's like if you're not drinking enough water, you're probably going to be constipated no matter what you do. All right. So digestive enzymes, take us through a primer. Digestive enzymes 101. What do we need to know? And the reason why, one of the other reasons I invited you here, other than like your incredible resource, is that I was having a brief conversation with Steve about digestive enzymes, and he was just like blowing my mind left and right. I'm like, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. It's one of those things I think we take for granted, and there's a lot of information to reveal. So tell us about your take on digestive enzymes, and if you could reveal some of those things that I think most people are either glossing over or misunderstanding about digestive enzymes. Please, thank you.
Yeah, I'll do my best, but also just remind me of whatever blew your mind, and we can talk about it again.
Okay.
So, I think a few things that happen is when you have any sort of gut issues, as soon as you are on the internet or as soon as you see someone outside of Western medicine, you will probably be told to take an enzyme product. And I started on them over 11, 12 years ago. But I always wasn't really sure if they were working. It seemed like sometimes they helped, or like the first week I totally noticed a breakthrough, but then it seemed like maybe my symptoms came back at like 80% or whatever. And I always just kind of took them because I knew I should take them and because the experts told me to take them. But I didn't really get it. And it wasn't until the last like 18 months that I really dove into this topic that I started to unravel some of the mysteries around these ancient power of enzymes. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a sexy way to get people excited about a fundamental, And so one of the things is that we are basically, it's believed at this point that like stem cells, we're sort of born with the amount of enzymes we're going to make in a lifetime. And so this is one of the things that kind of blew my mind. And I started to think about like, vitamin D 10 years ago, everyone was saying, like the really early people were saying, like, you need to supplement with vitamin D. But when you supplement with vitamin D, you don't notice much of a benefit right away. It's hard to just take something. But it's very clear that over the long run, it's one of those needle movers that really changes your life and changes your health. And if you don't have enough, everything is harder. And I think the same is true as enzymes, as well as that they are depleted, especially after you're 50, especially after 60, just kind of like our hormones, kind of like everything we have. And so to me, enzymes are now sort of like an anti-aging tool, as well as a intestinal intervention tool. If we're going to, I plan to eat organic and wild caught and free range everything the rest of my life. But if I spend all that money and all that time trying to honor nature and honor life, only to absorb 60% or 70% because I don't have enough enzymes to actually break it down, and I just put it in the toilet and also create a potentially dysbiotic microbiome. To me, it seems like that's such a waste when we know there's a technology that I could take on a regular basis to get, 90, 95, 100% of all of that time and effort and honoring those animals. So yeah, I'm big into these enzymes. I'm big into the science of them, which I'm sure we're going to dive into. And sort of that's my starting big shocker is that they decline over time, and they decline with inflammation.
They decline with inflammation. Okay. I got to absorb that one. No pun intended. What, we go to the health food store and we look at the labels and we're like, amylase, blah, blah, lays. What should we be looking for? And what's the big surprise? There was like, you were describing about the different types of enzymes and how most supplement companies have this kind, but you really need this kind.
Yeah. So if you want, like if you're at, on Zoom right now or on Facebook, one of the things you could do is go grab the enzyme you have in your house and have it near you, because it is complex. And part of what makes it complex is the supplement companies are doing various things on their labels to make it complex. So enzymes by themselves are complex. They're not actually alive. They're kind of like viruses. And so they're active when they have all the requirements to be active, but otherwise they're not active. We'll dive into that more later. But the biggest thing when you pick up a bottle, like your supplement bottle, and you're looking at it, you're going to want to make sure that, this is my belief anyways, and some people, I think most people agree with this, but depending on what company you represent, you might have a different point of view. But I believe you need pancreatic enzyme support and brush border enzyme support. If you don't have both, how would you know if you're actually having a intestinal villi issue and a brush border mucosal problem, or you're having a pancreatic bile acid problem? You wouldn't. And I don't really know how you're going to tease those variables out unless you do a direct, they can actually take like a sample of your intestines, but they have to, you have to knock you out usually and go down through your pie hole and go get it. And so that's not feasible on a regular basis, nor probably desired. So the biggest thing at the highest level, I think you need to have a strong amount of pancreatic enzymes and a strong amount of brush border enzymes, because who knows which ones you're deficient in at what points in the life cycle you are, with your health.
Okay. And so then like somebody's asking, like, they were told to get off all enzymes while being treated for SIBO. So that's like a side note there, but that's interesting. I've never heard that.
Never heard that. Ever.
I've never heard that. The more you can absorb your food and sort of steal it back from the overgrowth of the bacteria, I think that's a good thing. I'm not a doctor. That's just been my experience in my thousands and thousands of hours of listening to experts talk about it. And I do talk about enzymes down rabbit holes frequently because it's so overlooked. So anyway, Jules, I hope that helps you. Can we go over a little bit of a primer of like, which ones deal with fat, which ones deal with protein, the basics. Yeah.
So inside of pancreatic enzymes are basically a protease family. So protease breaks down proteins, amylase breaks down carbohydrates, and lipase breaks down fat. Now inside of your protease, there's sort of different strains, if you will, or different types. Inside of amylase, there's sort of subsets, but those are the big classifications. And your pancreas creates those in response to smells and stomach expansion and stomach acid secretion, bile acid. And so those are dumped into the small intestine at the top, right underneath where the stomach dumps in there. And so if you have the wrong stomach acid, you could have low pancreatic enzyme issues. If you have any sort of inflammation with gallbladder, bile acid production, that could cause low pancreatic enzyme release. There's obviously structural issues. You could have a deformity potentially. There's actual pancreatic insufficiency. That's a medical issue. But anybody without a gallbladder is really probably going to have reduced pancreatic expression of enzymes, potentially the rest of their life, most likely. And then inside of the intestine, I think maybe not everybody's familiar yet, but I think between a lot of the experts you've exposed them to, our work, most people are aware that you have these little fingers inside of your intestines that multiply the surface area of your small intestine, and they're called villi. And of course, the down here is called a crypt, and they do all these really cool functions. And one of the functions of these villi and the cells that are associated with them are the release of brush border enzymes. And so those are different enzymes, and those are things like the cellulase or alpha galactidase or maltase, sucrase, lactase. Lactase is the most common one. Everyone has pretty much heard of, I have a dairy problem, I might have a lactose issue. Lactase is the enzyme that we often lose as adults in our intestines at the brush border that basically cause us to be lactose intolerant. And so if you have inflammation of the small intestine due to SIBO, due to leaky gut, due to a parasite, due to, I don't know, systemic inflammation coming from somewhere else in your body, especially celiac disease, we know that those villi are blunted or cut off or totally flattened. That's literally how you diagnose the gold standard of diagnosing celiac disease. And so when that happens, you're going to have low production of these brush border enzymes. Now, on top of that, there's other enzymes like xylanase and things like that that are actually secreted by your microbiome. And those help break down your food as well. So xylanase is used for like polyphenols, things like that. So it's a very complex environment in there, and you have a lot of these specific enzymes. Let's see. So cellulase obviously breaks down the cellulose walls. So does xylanase. Alpha galactidase breaks down like legumes, beans. People are probably familiar with the Beano product. Beano, if you look at the label, is just a lot of alpha galactidase and some other things, but that's the most active ingredient in it. And so each of these enzymes has a very specific sort of functionality that it does when it comes to breaking down our food.
I just want to mention about beanzyme that it does have shellfish in it. So number one, if you're allergic to shellfish, I don't want you to think that you're taking like a normal enzyme and you're like all of a sudden getting anaphylactic shock. And then it's if you're a vegetarian, there's something on Amazon called, wait, what do you call? Oh, that's Beano. Beanzyme is the vegetarian one. Beano is got the fish. Beanzyme is the vegetarian one. Okay.
And holzymes now, is totally vegan and vegetarian, and
Yay.
does have 400 units of the alpha galactidase. So
Okay, great.
I believe the Beano dose is 1,200 units. So if you took 6 capsules of holzymes, you'd be equaling.
So Wholezymes is the brand that you created and the product line that you created after being in this arena for decades. I know you'd always dreamed of creating a couple of key supplements that you felt could be better in the marketplace. And so Wholezymes is what makes Wholezymes different. Wholezymes is the enzyme product that you have created that by the way, I get rave reviews from people from it. I love it. I feel a big difference with it, which is one of the reasons why I'm so happy you're here talking to people about it. What makes Wholezymes different?
So we got to go back to enzymes and how they work. So they're like viruses, and in that they're not necessarily alive all the time. And what they need is they need the right environment. They need the right pH environment to work. So for instance, pancreatic enzymes only work at a high pH, so between 7 and 9 on the pH scale. So why would low stomach acid cause your pancreatic enzymes not to work? Well, if your stomach acid isn't low enough when it dumps in, or if it's too high when it dumps in, and then you dump in the right amount of bicarbonate and you raise the pH, which is what normally happens, you could raise it too high, or you could not raise it enough, and then your regular body enzymes won't work. Now, the cool thing about our body is it needs the right pH environment for the enzyme, but it also needs a cofactor, a mineral to turn it on. And so, so when you have an enzyme that is sort of all together in one, it's called a whole enzyme. Without a cofactor, it's called an apoenzyme. So without the mineral cofactor. And so animal created enzymes, whether they're extracted from a pig or a cow or in our own bodies, are whole enzymes already. They are complete from nature. They just need the right pH environment to work. Now, in the enzyme industry, what they've done is they've figured out how to harvest enzymes from microbes. And so microbial, vegan, vegetarian products that are harvested, they're basically the microbes give off the enzymes. Those are apoenzymes, and they need the mineral to turn on, basically. And so this is what I believe is the biggest issue, because when I was having all my issues, and then when I was a clinician for a while, I could give a high dose pancreatic enzyme to myself or to other people, and it would help. It would really change someone's life, sometimes. But it was only like 30% of the time that you could do a pancreatic enzyme and it would work. And so I believe the reason why is missing the brush border piece. But there's not many anyways, and they're very hard to get brush border enzymes from an animal, so from a pig or from a cow. And so to make a full whole enzyme, you need that mineral cofactor. And so this is why I believe when I was doing it, when I was working with other people, we would try them on all the brands, the brands that people are probably trying right now, Thorne, Pure, everybody.
Hold on for a second.
There are no,
hold on for a second.
There's not many anyways, and they're very hard to get brush border enzymes.
Ooh, Steve, are you there? Okay, sorry. I was trying to reply to somebody and it made double sound. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're okay. So when you have a vegan or a vegetarian or a microbe-derived enzyme, it's missing the cofactor. Now, the cool thing about those enzymes is, one, no animals are hurt in the process, and they're much more pH available, meaning they can work at a huge range of pH. So having the perfect stomach acid, or having the perfect delivery, or worrying about them getting destroyed by the body's natural processes, you don't have to worry about that stuff. But you do need to worry about the activation. And so that's why I believe that some people, if they have a microbe-derived or a brush border enzyme in their house, and they take it sometimes and it works, and they take it other times and they don't think it works, and they're not sure. The reason why is it's not getting the mineral to activate it. And how to get that mineral? Well, that mineral would have to be available inside of your stomach or inside of your intestines. So it basically bumps in, hits the enzyme, and turns on. And then the enzyme can go do its job, whatever its job is, protease, lipase, amylase, whatever. And so I set out to solve this issue a couple of years ago. And I believe I bought all the best brands, and I would just try them. I would do things that I don't encourage you to do, like eat a bag of corn chips or do other things, and just pop a bunch of pills and see, like, could I do this? And I found out, like, reliably, the answer was mostly no. And so I bumped into a researcher he's got a PhD, and he ended up having a patent on this, essentially making these microbe-based enzymes whole. And so he got a patent almost 20 years ago now on this AES technology, is what he coined it. But it's basically, he sat there in a lab and he would drop in protease or lipase or lactose, and he would drop in the minerals and the specific types of mineral chelations to find out which mineral and which chelation made it the most excited and active and made it into the best whole enzyme. And so that's what we ended up doing. I ended up partnering and licensing his patent to make holozyme. And I believe that is why it's getting the rave reviews it has been getting, and why I finally was excited to bring something to the market, because it was, to me, a true, innovation.
That is so cool, because I know like you have sort of, you're a big time body hacker yourself, like you try everything on yourself, but also you, I know, waited a really long time to do this, because if it wasn't going to be superior, you weren't going to do it, right? You weren't, I know a lot of people, I like a lot of these people, but in another group that are, they make some, they have a private label on other brands, and that's cool. But this is truly different. This is truly innovative. And that's why I'm so happy to share it with you. I did put the link for Holzymes with the special SIBO SOS coupon included. Just go to the page and it's automatically activated in the feed on the Facebook, and it should be in the chat. Okay. How do you know if your it is in the chat on Zoom. How do you know if your digestive enzyme is giving you the maximum benefit?
Well,
I think you're just going to feel better.
Yeah. I mean, what you could do is, and this is something I'm really glad, I'm going to try to kind of turn this into a teaching point. So
yeah,
I think a lot of people in restoring our digestion, restoring natural health, holistic healing, we don't want to get quote unquote, I don't know, we want to rely on a pill, for instance, the rest of our lives, right? Or we don't want to get reliant on certain things, or we're worried about taking too much potentially. And so I just want everybody to know that, due to some other circumstances that I'm sure we'll talk about in a few years, I've had to go deep into the cancer world. And there's a guy named Dr. Nicholas Gonzalez who uses high dose enzyme therapy with cancer patients and has a long track record of making some pretty awesome success. And they use 100 to 160 enzyme pills a day in these types of therapies.
Oh, wow.
And so for you to take your digestive enzyme and double the dose or triple the dose or quadruple the dose, you're not going to do any quote unquote harm that has been shown in the research anywhere that I found or by these clinicians. And so how do you know you're getting the maximum benefit? Double or triple or quadruple the dose for a few days and see if you notice any other benefit. And those benefits would be reduce bloating, reduce gas, reduce any complaint you have when it comes to digestion. So better, if you're too fast, you're a diarrhea person, less diarrhea. If you're too slow, you're constipation, maybe that gets a little better. That's, enzymes aren't necessarily the solution for constipation, but they should improve your digestion overall. Reduction in acid reflux, improvement in energy because you're actually absorbing your nutrients. Over time, you should notice big changes in your hair, skin, and nails because you're actually starting to get your protein into your body. So that's what I would say is, like, if you're sitting on an enzyme at home and you're wondering, is this even working for me or whatever, just if you take 2 pills, take 4 for 3 days. If you take 3, take 6 and see what happens. And if you're still not sure, double it again for 3 days. Again, I'm not your doctor. If you're concerned, obviously clear this with your doctor. But again, I'm not aware of any contraindications.
Okay. From Julie, okay, hang on, Tim. I got something for you there. Okay, I currently take digestzymes. It's a brand. I currently take digestzymes with betaine HCl. I don't always know if these are working, so you can do what Steve just said. I do feel better when I take them, but I'm still getting bloating. Will this product help? If so, do I need to take wholezyme with an HCl product?
Yeah, so as Siobhan mentioned, I'm a lifelong supplement user. I love it all. I love the miracle idea. I buy them all, try them all. And I've just found that having your enzyme and your HCl in the same pill is really for beginners, basically. That's for somebody who really doesn't dive down the rabbit hole of digestion and how the components work together, and mechanically, how do you get the job done? Because the truth is, if you get too many of the same type of product in one pill, so in this case, you're trying to support the stomach and the intestines, you're not going to get a therapeutic dose of either. And the truth is, when it comes to stomach acid support and betaine HCl, it's very variable to the person. You really need to find your ideal dose. That's why there's a lot of talk about the HCl challenge and those types of things. So if you were to like triple your, there's all kinds of brands. Digestzyme is just one, now has super enzymes. There's all kinds of them. If you were to just double that and then you had some sort of reaction, you wouldn't even know if was it the HCl or was it too many enzymes. So I would highly encourage everyone to get a separate HCl and a separate enzyme. That way you can tailor the dose to your specific condition and your specific lifestyle.
Okay. From Joy, what does it mean when digestive enzymes give you indigestion or acid bumps in your mouth? She's just getting started with it. I wonder if there's HCl in that product.
Yeah, I would love to look at the ingredient label and see what the product was. No HCl. So, the answer is it could be a whole lot of things. I think a lot of people don't know that acid reflux is often low stomach acid, and it's often caused by fermentation. So bloating, gas, acid reflux, not all the time with acid reflux, but definitely with bloating and gas, literally that's fermentation. That's the byproduct of a bunch of bugs farting out some gas, eating your food for you. And so with acid reflux, if it happens in the stomach due to low stomach acid, it's going to push up on the lower esophageal sphincter, open that up a lot of times, and cause the reflux. So I would say for her, if there's no HCl in it, she could try either a different brand, or she could try double or tripling the dose and see what happens.
Okay. Tim, I thought I understood your question, but now I don't. Tim wrote me, systemic therapeutic / proteolytic impact aside from digestive.
So
what does that mean, Steve? Do you know what that means exactly?
Yeah, so one thing I never understood was that there's this thing called systemic enzyme therapy, and it's not very well, in my opinion, it's not very well represented on the internet. There's not too many experts who really speak about it. It seems it can kind of feel a little like maybe it's a myth or maybe it's not true. Now, sadly, that's far from the truth. Actually, systemic enzyme therapy has been extensively studied, way more studies actually than digestive enzymes, especially in Germany and in Asia, but also in the United States. And so what is the difference between a digestive enzyme and a systemic enzyme? So at the highest level, at the base, when you take an enzyme product with food, it's working digestively. When you take it without food, it's working systemically. And there are certain enzymes that are quote unquote systemic in nature, meaning they've mostly only been studied in the systemic effects. These would be things like serrapeptidase, nattokinase, and they're amazing. Well, serrapeptidase could go back and forth. There's a lot of conflicting data there, but what are all of those? Those are actually proteases that work in a very specific pH window and have a kind of a specific structure. And so a systemic enzyme is absorbed orally, goes through your intestines, and then it does things like cleans up inflammation, it cleans up, it improves blood flow, it helps balance the immune system. And the majority of the systemic effects are due to the protease class of enzymes, which includes just straight protease. You don't need it to be a specialty systemic enzyme. But you will notice that the majority of systemic enzymes, if you go Google them, are really heavy in proteases, and that's why. But there is still some lipase and amylase that are doing some work there. But it's amazing for pain reduction. There's been studies on like gaining more muscle and less soreness after exercise. There's been a bunch of stuff around heart disease, circulation with systemic enzyme therapy. So you could test your enzyme product. You don't necessarily need a systemic version of it. However, each of those strains does have a specific study with it. Holzymes does not have those quote unquote specific systemic strains, but it has been studied systemically, both in type 2 diabetes people and gout people. And the pilot trials show that it is absorbed and it does work systemically as well. And so you'll see on the back of Holzyme the recommendation to take 2 with a meal and 2 before bed. So you would be taking it both digestively and systemically And I'm a firm believer in it. I'm a huge fan of systemic enzyme therapy now. And there are some benefits to be had from some of the other products in the market that include some of these more specialty enzymes, but you can also gain a lot of benefit just from dosing holzyme systemically.
Very cool. Okay, so you just answered Rhonda's question. Okay, this is from Marie Eve. I have mold toxicity diagnosis, and my naturopath told me not to take enzymes made with aspergillus. I never tolerated enzymes, and I thought this was why. Would this be possible? Thank you. So a lot of people, like when you get those great Plains Labs, the mycotoxins are showing, you know, some of this mold business from aspergillus. I have the same situation, Eve, so I feel your pain. What are your thoughts on that, Steve?
It's an absolute myth. 100%.
Ah, bust it.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
So I was very concerned about this as well. But what most people don't understand is yes, almost actually 100% of all microbe-derived enzymes are grown on mold. And here's what grown on mold though means. The aspergillus strains actually secrete the enzyme. When in the lab, they harvest the enzyme. So I don't know if you understand that. Like literally you have your mold spore, it poofs out enzymes. Then they take those enzymes and then they strain them many, many times. Like ours are over 4 times sort of strained. There's zero mold residue. There's nothing that could even track back to it being related to an aspergillus or some sort of mycotoxin issue. So people just don't, and I didn't get it. I didn't understand, like, oh my God, it's grown on aspergillus. That's probably terrible, but it's not. Grown on means secreted by. And so there's no mold left over in any of these products. It's not just ours. I'm not saying like ours is super special. Like literally there's a ton of sophisticated technology to make sure that you are getting no mold in any of your enzymes. But people who have mold toxicity can react to certain enzyme products because a lot of mycotoxins are being stored in your biofilms and in your microbes. And if you take enzymes and you start to disrupt your biofilms, you could release some of those toxins that were sort of bound, and then those could travel into your body or, you know, out your stool or whatever. So if you're a super mold reactor sensitive person and you're having a reaction to enzymes, it's much more likely that you're actually in the process of healing yourself through a detoxification than you would ever be having a reaction to the actual product.
Interesting. Jenny says, shouldn't you only need digestive enzymes temporarily when treating the root cause? I don't know if you were here in the very beginning, Jenny, but Steve was talking about how people, as we age, we lose digestive enzyme production. So, you know, root cause, please treat your root cause. My gosh, yes. But if you're not producing enough digestive enzymes, supplementing is a great idea. And this is where I also refer back to the whole probiotic pill thing versus fermented foods. Our forefathers and mothers were going out to the farm, getting the potatoes, coming inside and eating those every day, and the carrots and the roots and the, you know, the veggies. So they were constantly re-inoculating with probiotics. And so in a variety of ways, not just from, you know, root veggies, but so that whole re-upping is on a daily basis. Not usually what people are actually doing in their real lives through a natural format, a natural way of being. So this is why I personally think that for me, I'll say it, the supplementation is super, super helpful. Steve, what do you have to say about that? And then I have a couple more questions, and Tara, I want to get to your question for sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't want to be quote unquote reliant on something. If you don't know me, but Siobhan knows me a little bit. And I hunt, I try to gather my meat from the wild. I want to be prepared in case something weird were to happen with our civilization in these crazy times. So I'm big on resilience. And I believe that's actually what really most people want with their health, is to be resilient, to be able to handle a stress, a car accident, a birth, a death, a movement of your house or something, and still have good digestion. And the truth is, if we were living in that slower paced world where we were gardening most of our food or acquiring it, and you were touching dirty animals on a regular basis. You were touching the earth on a regular basis. You weren't stressed when you were eating. You haven't had any surgeries. All these things are lined up. Then yeah, you probably don't need digestive enzymes. And I'm a firm believer that you should always stop all of your supplements at least like every year. So whatever you think you're reliant on, whether it's a probiotic or a prebiotic or I don't know, a multi or what B vitamin, MTHFR supplement, like whatever you think you have been told that you're relying on, you should still do a pill stop and stop that and see how you feel, because there is the chance that you do heal and you don't need those things anymore. Or there's a chance that you've over supplemented, and definitely in the case with MTHFR, and you might not need that anymore. So I'm a huge proponent in stopping your supplementation, but I think you have to be realistic with the world that we live in. You got to take into account your personal medical history. Have you had any surgeries? Have you had any injuries to your digestive system? Your personal microbiome status? How good is your biome? If you're on this call, you're probably not in the the Olympian category of microbiome. I'm not.
Yeah. Jenny's clarified. First of all, I think that was all very valuable. And Jenny's clarified that she's talking about her 6-year-old daughter who's being treated for SIBO. Well, heck yeah, get to that root cause.
Yeah. Get to that root cause and, continue on. She's going to have a lot of malabsorption for a while. So 6 months past that, give it a stop and see how she does, but you got to be monitoring her stools, her bloating, all of those things.
How long is your pill stop that you usually do? And then I've got to get Tara's question in.
I usually stop for 2 weeks,
talk to your doctor, people. Talk to your doctor, especially if you're, doing a lot of supplements, right?
Yeah. And you can't pill stop all pharmaceuticals. Like don't biohack things if you don't know what you're doing. Seek medical advice.
I'm trying to find your comment, Tara, and for some reason, Facebook's not letting me see all the comments, but Tara was saying that she's concerned about the protease taking so much of it, eating the stomach lining.
Okay. So the cool thing about the stomach is I think it's the coolest organ in the whole body. It is definitely the most powerful in my opinion. So the lining of the stomach is actually super thick. The muscle layer is super thick, and the mucosal layer is super thick. It regularly, like several times a day, goes down below 2 on the pH scale. Battery acid is like 1.8 a lot of times. So you think of like battery acid, like we're all told like, don't touch that stuff, it could burn you, and it does, it can. Your stomach regularly survives every day at a really, really low pH. And it mashes, like, think of a walnut. Like, how many of us sit there and if you have an almond or a walnut and you literally sit there and you chomp for like 30 bites and you really crush those pieces down like a raw nut? Come on, we don't do that. We chomp it for like 5 to 8 and then we swallow. Now it's your stomach's job. It has to crack a walnut, basically. So your stomach can get mucosal issues. So, obviously with ulcers, acid reflux, H. pylori, these types of things. If you have an active ulcer, you're taking an enzyme, whether it's ours or any enzyme, it's causing you pain, then yeah, you have some healing to do probably with your stomach lining. But otherwise, if you're relatively healthy, I don't see any contraindication, and I don't think your stomach is even affected by it.
Tara, feel free to comment on that. If someone has had gastric bypass, what would be the most important thing to be sure to include in their enzymes?
Well, I haven't looked at studies in a long time around enzyme production and gastric bypass, so I can't comment specifically on that quote unquote condition, but I don't see why you wouldn't want a full spectrum enzyme. It still doesn't make sense to me why you'd only want to do a brush border, or you'd only want to do a gluten one, or only want to do a pancreatic one. I would think you'd want full support.
Okay. I want to kind of start to wrap up, but I tried Jackie. Hey, Jackie. I tried Digest Gold and Digest, Digest, Digest. I'm assuming that's a enzyme. Both give me heartburn and constipation after 3 days. Is it because I don't need it? It's an interesting question.
They give you heartburn and I mean, obviously, if any supplement ever gives you a contraindication of what it should be doing, like in this case, it's pretty much widely accepted that a digestive enzyme or a systemic enzyme should be supportive. Like there's really hardly any contraindications on that. So whenever you get a counterintuitive response to a normal thing, like for instance, magnesium, like magnesium should be calming. It should calm you down. It should be relaxing. If you don't, if you get wired by magnesium, that's concerning to me. That means there's something odd going on in your physiology or in your microbiome or something. There's a root cause somewhere in there. So if everybody else is saying like, hey, this sort of natural compound works for me, and this is the range of reactions, and you end up on the opposite spectrum, you should go into that and try to figure that out. It could be related to you have too much of a certain nutrient, too low. You could have something else going on there. So to me, that's an indication that something else is happening, and I couldn't tell you what it is. But I do want to let people know that when you change how your digestion works, like when you change what you're absorbing, you're reducing food to your microbiome. So constipation can happen due to enzyme introduction because you're reducing the amount of fat that's sort of like sliding along your intestines. You're reducing the amount of carbohydrate and polysaccharides that your microbiome is going to grow on. And this is good long-term. So you're building a better microbiome long-term because you're not feeding it the wrong types of structures of foods. But if you've already changed your diet and molded it around a broken body part, like if you broke your arm and you didn't set it correctly and you molded your diet around that broken arm, and then you started to fix it, you would need to recreate the mold. So when you do introduce things like enzymes or a powerful HCl or something like that, you may have to rethink your type of diet. You might add more fat in, you might add in more vegetables, things like that, that would go ahead and relieve some of that constipation.
BJ's doing rifaximin right now for hydrogen SIBO and have been told shouldn't do any digestive enzymes until I finish the course. Is there a logic to this?
I would love to hear it from the person's mouth who said it, because I don't see how that would.
Never heard of that. That doesn't mean, I'm curious too. Should you take digestive enzymes away from probiotics, like separated in the day?
I don't think so. I don't think there's anything there that suggests that the enzymes are going to do anything to the probiotics. I haven't seen any literature on it yet.
Okay, and Rena is saying, why would someone get a stomachache after having a digestive enzyme?
Yeah.
Could it be the release of the biofilm and everything you were just saying? I just want to confirm you weren't like, oh, it could be this.
Yeah, it could be a biofilm release. It could be, it could be again that your body's adapted to a really low amount of enzymes or a really low amount of acid. If you don't introduce enough and you just kind of bump it up a little bit, but you don't get to that therapeutic level, it can cause that sort of that unexpected reaction we talked about. And so,
Okay.
But that stuff, I hate it when that stuff happens.
I know, I hate it too. Okay, last question. Someone has asked, can you take digestive enzymes to clear SIBO? I think I know the answer, but what do you think?
Well, I mean, you've talked to more SIBO experts than I have, but my opinion is it's part of a healing SIBO program. It's not, you can't clear it.
You can't clear it. No. It's good for for the holistic approach, but it doesn't make sense that it would impact the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Someone's also asking, Joy, do you need to heal leaky gut before you start your enzymes? Or can enzymes actually help heal leaky gut?
Yeah, I think they're part of a leaky gut healing protocol. They're a part of any gut healing protocol, unless your doctor tells you no, and then you verify that with another doctor, because apparently some doctors have some weird ideas about enzymes. But no, because look, so enzymes, again, that are not used in your digestive tract will be absorbed systemically and then give you benefit. So you're not, quote unquote, wasting any enzymes whenever you take them. And when it comes to leaky gut, one of the biggest things we need to do is we need to reduce the molecule size that's going through your intestinal wall, because our immune system starts to tag these certain molecule sizes. If the molecule is too big, it automatically gets tagged as an invader. So how do we have these crazy food sensitivities? Part of it is the size of molecule that's getting into our bodies. It's the wrong size. And so digestive enzymes working higher up in the stomach, in the upper small intestine, are going to pre-digest that food even faster. So hopefully it's absorbed, so there'll be less weird molecule sizing to go in the case of leaky gut. So I think it's actually a big help with leaky gut.
And Steve is a bona fide expert in leaky gut. Trust me on that. SCD lifestyle, a lot of you may have in your beginning journeys to find answers for your gut. Steve and Jordan were the ones who started that. They perpetuated so much fantastic information and still do to millions and millions of people from their site. I need to talk to you about Wholezymes and the special thing that you did for us. Thank you, Steve. Steve gave it SIBO SOS a very nice big discount because I didn't just ask, I persisted. And because he's a great guy. So tell us about that. And the link for, if you want the discount, is in both the Zoom chat as well as on the Facebook feed. And you don't need a special code because it's embedded into the page when you order, right, Steve?
Yes, correct. Yep.
And where do you ship to? That's what people want to know too.
Yeah. So what Siobhan twisted my arm into is $15 off any order, any size, and free US shipping, any size. So we do ship. We are shipping. You know, COVID and everything has delayed all postal carriers. There's nobody that's, you know, doing the job really well here. So do give us some leeway sometimes. We're pretty on top of it, but that does slow things down. We do ship internationally. There's an international charge due to everything. And of course, shipping speeds are a little slower, but we're delivering almost everywhere in the world currently. And yeah, and the offer is $15 off. I wish we could do, you remember those like Coke and Pepsi taste challenges they did back in the day? Well, I wish we could do like a wholezyme versus whatever enzyme you have in your cupboard taste challenge or
well, you kind of could, because if you did get wholezymes and you already have something at home, you could like eat a gluten-free grilled cheese sandwich or something you eat all the time, and then take your wholezymes one day, a couple days later, do the same small meal and do what you have in the bottle and see how you feel. You'll have to be your own civilian scientist.
Totally. And we do offer a 60-day money-back guarantee because, look, I've been in a version of your shoes. I've been very sick, throwing all the money I have on credit cards to try to figure this out. And the truth is, I also know from working with hundreds and hundreds of people one-on-one that there are those outliers who react the opposite way. So you give them magnesium and they get wired and crazy and anxietized. And so there are a few people, it's been less than 1%, who holzymes does not work for. And we, you know, freely give you your money back there. I'm not in the business of restricting your healing path.
No. Hey, Tara's back, and I do want to honor her situation here. And by the way, we are running out of time, but Steve, maybe you can check this thread after we're done and you could respond. She's just saying, does this have protease in it? HCl gives me bad burning and has caused me heartburn as well. I'm sorry, Tara. And thank you for that response. I'm still really confused because I've read on several digestive online pages, especially the guy that created fixyourgut.com, who I do not know who that is off the top of my head. I'd have to look. Oh my gosh, Facebook, come on now. It just cut me off and I can't see the comment. Will you do me a favor and go to this thread and reply to Tara and some other folks who have questions? Okay.
Yeah, we can figure that out.
Okay, great. Thank you, Steve. Thank you for the discount. Thank you for the education. We really appreciate it. And let's do this again really soon. Okay?
Yeah, totally. Thank you, Siobhan.
Okay, I want to encourage everybody to check out Wholezymes for themselves and have your own experience. If it doesn't work for you, Steve will give you your money back. I just know that this is one of the most overlooked and effective ways to improve your digestion. And if you haven't explored it, or if you've explored it with a brand that's not like what Wholezymes is, because it really truly is different, it might serve you well to investigate it. I know we all have a lot on our plates, literally, or not enough on our plates because we're looking for food that doesn't trigger us. But this could be the missing link. Look, I have a lot of people approaching me all the time. Siobhan, can I do a Facebook Live? Hey, will you, send out to your list about this and that? And I am a big saying no person unless it's a hell yes. And this is definitely a hell yes for me because I know it has helped me. And I know Steve and I know that he is of high integrity. And so I'm very happy to share it with you. And thanks for the discount. Okay. Love you guys. Mwah. Bye. Thank you. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you later. All right. I'm going to end that. What timing that is. Okay.